Great to talk with this guy again on Philly Pressbox Radio. Tom McGinnis set to join us. But I should mention we talked at midday Monday, shortly before the news came down, that the big guy Joel Embiid is joining several of his teammates on the injury list. The center to miss at least the next couple of games with a foot sprain. But we carry on. It's the radio voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis. Hey, Tom, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate you having me.
Well, Tom, the Sixers haven't exactly set the world on fire this season. Yeah, they've had injuries, certainly a factor, but they're just 8-8. They've struggled in more than a few of those wins even. What have we learned about this Sixers team so far, 1/5 into the season?
Well, again, you added a bunch of pieces. Harden, joining the team for the first time fully in camp after playing just 21 games. So to be fair, I think, everybody realized or should have realized that it's going to take some time. But to be 500 at this stage, I don't know that anybody expected that. And now there's a couple of, as you say, injuries with Harden and Maxey being out. But there's been a lot of bright moments as well. And, Doc Rivers, his mantra the whole time has been, and remember now, he's won 50-plus games in both seasons, including one year. The first time it was 72-game season. So the idea is to win games while figuring it out. And that's something that the Sixers have done to an extent, but probably not to the measure that he would have liked at this stage.
Well, Tobias Harris dealing with some hip pain. We hope to have him back this week. James Harden going to be out for another couple of weeks, I guess. We found out Sunday, of course, that Tyrese Maxey will be sidelined 3 to 4 weeks due to a little fracture in his left foot. How are the Sixers going to get through these next few weeks with their two starting guards who, normally will give you 40-plus points a night unavailable?
Well, that's a great point. And so far, it's been DeAnthony Melton and Shake Milton. They both played well against Minnesota. And, Melton he made 5 threes. He had like a number of steals, assists. And Shake is, really developed and played well in the 2 games that he's really been used, because early in the season, he wasn't playing. So, you're looking for a blessing in disguise, and you're developing these players, or at least knowing you can count on them. Now, Melton was a part of the mix anyway, but at the beginning of the season, Shake was not playing. You had the new guys in Tucker and Harrell and Melton and House playing, and not so much Furkan, Matisse, Paul Reed, and Shake. And so that's the thing with the season being so long. You're going to need, at some point, you're going to need every player. And right now, with those 2 guys out, you're going to have to, find ways to get the ball across to initiate your offense. Doc Rivers was saying that both Montrezl Harrell at times and Embiid from the top can initiate it, but that's not necessarily bringing the ball up. So, and it's going to be a work in progress in figuring out how to get it done. And you'll never match, I don't think, the production of a Harden and a Maxey. But, again, the whole deal of, quote unquote, finding a way will be part of what goes on in the next few days and weeks.
Well, with Harden out the last couple of weeks, Joel Embiid has really picked up his game. He stepped it up, had some amazing games. Is Embiid at the top of his game right now, Tom?
Well, certainly that 3-game stretch, it measures up there with the greats in the history of our franchise, with Chamberlain and Iverson. And again, Doc Rivers, he's been around. He played 13 years. He's coached for over 20. He called it the most dominant performance he's ever seen, speaking of the Sunday night win over Utah over a week ago, where he had 59 points and 5 blocks. So again, the defensive rating when the Sixers have Embiid out there over the last couple of years or so has been top of the charts. And then to be able to score like he has and make the free throws, and we found that in the Milwaukee game where their star really struggled, Antetokounmpo from the line, and Embiid made nearly all of his free throws, and had a game earlier this year where he was 16 of 16 from the line, a career best. So he's really playing well, and it's his shooting touch. And again, you think of a 7-foot player and you have to put him on the block. Well, he gets doubled nearly all the time, period. But when you put him down there, then it becomes easier. And now he's got his back to the other side of the court. And he's been a little turnover prone. There were times he made strides and was much better, but over the last few games, he has turned the ball over. So to put him at what we call the nail, which is the center of the foul line, or the elbows, where he's facing up and he can show you that shooting touch. He made those 3 huge baskets against Milwaukee to help keep them at bay. And then he can see the double. So it's hard to double team him when he's on that position in the middle of the floor, looking at the basket and the defense.
So when Harden and Maxey are back healthy, are the Sixers, do you think, automatically going to be one of the true NBA Eastern Conference contenders?
Well, and that has to be, you have to prove that on the court. Like on
Sure.
paper, it sounds great. But even with those guys, as you said, the Sixers kind of struggled a little bit out of the gate. And Harden, to me, has been phenomenal. Like, really. Like, he not only sacrificed, like, financially to be in the position where the Sixers were to hire, get Melton and House and whatnot, Montrezl Harrell, but the sacrifice that he was, to me, doing on the court where he would draw the double, throw it away from the two defenders, and then it would be almost like that hockey assist. That right there was, and still averaging 9 or 10 assists per game. But what I'm saying is too, and then Maxey with the brilliance that he has, when those two guys get back with Joel, they still need to figure out how to best utilize Maxey while playing to the strengths of Harden and Embiid. And I think that was what you were hoping for in the start of the season. And that has been sidelined for a little bit now with the injuries to both James and Tyrese Maxey.
All right, Tom, we need to talk about the big Tuesday night game at the Center when a certain former Sixer makes his highly anticipated return. He will play this time, he assures us, talking, of course, about Ben Simmons. What kind of atmosphere do you expect at the Center, and how do you think the Sixers crowd will greet him?
Well, I thought last year there was so much buildup to that March game in which he did not play, didn't even shoot around. He passed the ball before the game, and, he didn't play at all for Brooklyn nor the Sixers in that season. So now he comes in, he's going to play, and I don't know that the buildup, it was ramping up, it felt like last year for days. But I'm sure like the people that are going to the game are going to be, still filled with some animosity and vitriol and whatnot. But Ben played last night. They played Memphis, and he played really well. And then Thursday night, they played Portland, and he played. And, Durant had 35. Simmons comes off the bench with 20, makes 3 or 4 free throws, and impacted the game. He was plus 15. And listening to Durant after the game, he was saying we needed to see that, like, as players, as teammates, talking about Simmons' performance. And I think for sure Simmons probably needed to do that as well, because he has been, like in and out of the lineup even this year. So I would just hope that people, like, I get, that the animus, if you will, toward Ben Simmons for sitting out last year and demanding a trade and all that stuff, but that it's somewhat civil, right? I mean, you can be derisive, whatever, but just that nothing that would get away from the game clean, I guess, is what you would say, at least from my perspective.
Hey, he is coming off his 2 best games of the season, 22 points in the most recent game, I believe. He's back in the starting lineup now, it appears. Do you think he's ever going to be an all-star caliber player again?
He could. The talent is there. The physical gifts are still there. I don't know that it would be this year, but it's one of those deals sometimes, you know how that goes, Chet, where a guy has a great season, gets on the radar a little bit, and then the following year that happens in every sport. So it could be something like that. Like the numbers that you're talking about in the 2 games and that I referred to, the Grizzlies and the Blazers game for Brooklyn, he played really well. So, and then you look at his shooting in that Portland game, he was 6 for 6. And I got the box right here from the game with Memphis. It was 11 of 13.
Yeah.
So he's an incredibly gifted athlete and a tremendous basketball player. And if he could get through everything health-wise in terms of both his back and his knee and mentally feel fit to go forward, I would think for sure he could, but we'll have to wait and see. Again, it's about productivity and consistency and being there, but the skill set for sure is there.
Hey, Tom, you mentioned some of the guys the Sixers brought in the offseason, including P.J. Tucker. He has not played up to expectations, especially the last few games. Is he just, getting old? Is he he's not washed up, I hope. What are you seeing from Tucker watching him every night?
Well, the last 3 games you're talking about, he hasn't scored.
Yeah.
And so, but again, like in that Milwaukee game, and Coach mentioned this in the locker room, and everybody broke out in applause. So it's one of those deals where, like it's not necessarily what you see in the box score. I don't think anybody expected him to score 15. It probably didn't expect him to get zero either. But he's been like, I wish everybody could have seen him in training camp. And people are like, well, when the games are what count, but just the leadership and the voice and the communication and the fact that he's been there and won a championship with the Bucks is something that's so important for your team. But the other thing is to preserve this guy for where he's available in April and May and Lord willing June. So he's not, again, the Sixers score enough points. They don't need PJ Tucker to score 20 points. Make a corner three when the opportunity's there, absolutely. But I don't know that he's disappointed. I don't think if you talk to the coaches or Coach Rivers or Dan Burke, who runs the defense, that they wouldn't agree with that at all.
Okay. Well, Tom, it always catches me off guard when I hear you doing interviews or talking in public, how calm and relaxed you sound compared to when you're calling a game and you turn it up 9 or 10 notches. You obviously love your job.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's I never take it for granted, Chet. You know what I mean? This was a dream of mine since I was probably a teenager, like going to the games in Chicago. And this was pre-Michael Jordan, and being out there. I used to sneak down to the court and rebound and whatnot. The lights in the NBA, and I mean in the Chicago Stadium where I first started going to the games, it got, and I love basketball. I mean, I've been playing since I was 8 years old and whatnot. And then it like I said, I never take it for granted. It's almost like I won the lottery when I got this job. And that's what I bring when you say like I ramp it up or whatever during the games. That's my deal. Like when the game starts, that's the time to perform. And I never lose sight of that. And again, it's all born out of the appreciation for the athletes and the competition to do some of these things, that what they do in the guts of a game. Like I never lose sight of, wow, that's amazing. So yeah, I love going to the arena. I love being around the game and speaking to people like yourself. So it has yet to get old.
And here you are in season 28. All right, Tom, thanks for visiting us here again on Philly Pressbox Radio. Great to get your insight on all things Sixers.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chet. Be well.